Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about Trump, which is why some people like him and people like me don't, which is that he's a person that people say gets things done, right? But he's a person that, because he gets things done, at the same time, he doesn't like mediators, right? He doesn't like people to mediate when he makes a decision, and he likes things to happen when he says it happens. And so he introduces a very big wild card into the world, right? Whether for good or for bad. And he also introduces a level of the use of speech based on his position that is completely irresponsible, right? It's something that you would see out of a cartoon, basically, an evil cartoon. And he's using this position, right, to make things, right? For example, training people in ICE, arming them, and then sending them out to the city to go and come in contact with civilians, right? What are you going to do once you end your presidency and you have to disarm them? What is that going to do, right? You've introduced a lot of changes, like you say, many changes you've introduced. I fear might not be able to be undone. And you have to really, it's we talk about Trump and Trump and Trump. It's like it's so personalistic that we're talking about the guy basically because we can't talk about almost anybody else. It really matters like on what foot he kind of like wakes up on, and if he thinks that you have been paying the rent, whether you've been paying back what you owe him, and if you don't, he's gonna bully you until you do, right? And I am afraid, and this is just kind of like the other side of maybe the argument, right? And I see people already kind of raising their hand and stuff. Maybe this is the other side of the argument, but I'm afraid, right, that once he's out, what kind of America are we going to be left with after his presidency, and what kind of standing will America be, in relation to allies or in relation to other actors in the world, like Denmark, for example, who actually helped us in Iraq and in Afghanistan. So I'm just like, I just kind of wanted to present maybe another side because I actually see him as very problematic.
So I saw Jeffrey seems to want to respond to this. Adam, did you raise your hand to be added to the list or to respond to Oscar? Okay, respond. Okay, Amy, you raise your hand to.
Gone to Oscar.
Okay, and Michael
Oh,
wants to respond to
let
Oscar.
me
No,
qualify my
no, no,
statement real
no.
quick.
No, because we have to. This is going to take forever. Then, all right. So let's just go. So BT, Jeffrey, Adam, Amy, and Michael, they want to respond to Oscar. Guys, keep it short then.
So it's true that President Trump has a certain hard way of speaking. The simple fact is sometimes that's what needs to be said. I mean, I've worked in those areas and seen how people treat when people talk nice. The time where the United States is going to allow our allies to free ride under our security umbrella, that's done. Not only is it immoral and it's in direct violation of the agreements they signed on to, we can no longer cover all bets because we now live in an asymmetric multipolar world. And while it's true that you're worried about unintended negative secondary consequences, say Donald unleashing a force that he can't control, we have to weigh relative risk. And right now, the previous administration let in tens of thousands of terrorists and known assets for our adversaries' intelligence agencies. All of them have been activated. And if we do not sit there and do our domestic shaping operations prior to the onset of escalatory war, we're going to have a whole shitload of mass casualty events. Indeed, and I'm going to finish up with this. The reason the amount of threats the previous administration let in has led, and the amount, and we don't have enough people on the wall. We literally are hiring back people that retired, and they're getting up in the field. So I don't hear your issue. I'm saying you have to weigh relative risk, and the risk is far greater in not doing.
Okay, Adam.
Hi,
Oh, hi.
guys. Nice to meet you all. I've been watching the Revolution live all month. I wanted to jump on this thing about Trump's language, which I guess we've all lived through and have an opinion about. I wanted to mention one time I saw Trump actually explain himself really quickly, and I thought, oh, he rarely does that. He explained in one breath that the core to what he's doing is trying to be unpredictable. And I thought that's absolutely right, especially because, we live in a mad world, mutually assured destruction with the nukes, and he's got his finger on the button, and he wants people to think he's crazier than he is. And honestly, I've started doing this myself as a politician. People in Toronto think I'm pretty freaking crazy, but they don't know what I'm going to do.
Oh, so
And
he's a genius. I just don't get him.
yeah, well, and
Okay,
actually, there's a
guys,
ref.
Oscar, not a single person interrupted you when you were speaking. Not a
Sorry,
single
sorry.
person.
I teach coding to kids. I can handle it. I just wanted to mention a reference that I found really helpful for understanding this because I thought of it when Trump said that a couple of years ago. And it's a chapter in Steven Pinker's book, How the Mind Works. I forget which chapter it is, but he talks about the movie Dr. Strangelove. And some of you have probably seen it. And he uses Dr. Strangelove to explain why humans would evolve to have emotions that they can't control, and it's basically to follow through on threats, which is very relevant to what's happening right now, right? Because Trump's making threats and he has to follow through. And the idea is that if you think Trump, let's say it's Trump who's president, and you think he's sane, then you might think, well, if we launch a nuke at him, he's not going to send a nuke back because that's just going to kill more people. By the time you send a nuke at them, they're already dead. Then they won't nuke back. Therefore, you can nuke them. So Trump has to seem so crazy that he doesn't value human life, that he cares more about following through on threats because of nuclear mutually assured destruction. So I'm sure that's relevant to the current situation. Anyway, it's a really good explanation in Pinker's book. I recommend it. But he's trying to be unpredictable. So he's doing a good job at that.
Okay, BT, do you want me to read the next person? Because I don't know. Okay,
So
the next,
are you continuing on with letting people respond
yeah,
to
yeah,
that, or are we going
just
back
two
to the
more.
list?
No, just two more people, Amy and Michael, and then we go back to the list.
Okay, that's what I have as well. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Amy.
Okay, thank you. I, as someone who moved from the left to the right recently, and someone who saw Trump from both sides, I appreciate now, especially now that I watch him from a different perspective and watch things differently than I used to watch. I appreciate the efficiency of the language that he uses. I like the fact that he's not wordy, flowery. I also appreciate the fact that he's a troll. He likes to stir the pot. I get that. I think that, there's a lot of, you see that in the world in general, and he's really good at it. I agreed a lot with what Jeffrey was saying, but I had a question for Jeffrey because and it has it's along the same lines of what Oscar was talking about. The ICE agents who are in the field, I had a theory that he had said something about Oscar had mentioned that he was just bringing people in and training them and putting them in ICE. My theory was that there were a lot more people that he was putting in ICE that probably had military training. What's your thought, Jeffrey?
So it's true that they've expanded or like
Short.
okay, sorry.
No, short. Make it
So yeah,
short
it's true
because,
they
like, we.
expanded.
Yeah.
So because we don't have enough people on the wall to meet all the domestic security concerns that we're facing, not in least of which was exacerbated by the previous administration's lax border
Correct.
policy, we
Correct.
need to sit there and we've expanded our ranks. And that means, yeah, you might take a little bit lesser trained people, or you might find other people who are retired or have skill sets that have a max amount of crossover like veterans. That's why we're doing it. It's not an act of totalitarianism, it's an act of desperation created by our previous administration.
Okay, we need to move on to Michael because we need to go back to the list. And also, Oscar, BT says it's only fair for Oscar to be able to respond to all of this. And guys, after Oscar responds to this, let's go back to the list. But Michael first, and then Oscar
Yeah.
respond to all of.
So I'll make it quick. So long story short, I feel like I agree with Oscar's points. What we need to fix in the United States is our law enforcement issue and also restructure our immigration process. Because number one, it's very inefficient. Number two, for example, the police in many situations, and this happened in Uvalde school shooting, you had law enforcement that was just waiting outside the school and they didn't engage. And unfortunately, you had border patrol agents that, should be in charge more of the border issue rather than like being the police. And so I feel like we first have to fix these gaps in order to prevent siding on one extreme. And I agree with Oscar with the fact that like with Denmark and many European countries, they have been very supportive of the United States when it comes to like wars in the Middle East. That's all.
Okay, Oscar.
Yeah, and you know, I get that there are like security concerns around the world and these kinds of things, but you're talking about your own civilian population that you're sending these people to, right? And so when you invoke, and especially him, where he uses this insurrection language and these kinds of things, you know, it reminds me of the time of the Spanish Civil War and these kinds of things, where a part of the population was basically trained to go after a part of the population that was often identified as enemies of the state or political enemies. And I often hear this lumping as well of the liberals with the communists and the socialists by the rightists, very often done by more the right wing. I wouldn't even call them like American conservatives. More, this is more like a right wing kind of thing of like Christian nationalist kind of like idea. But this level of urgency that you're communicating, Jeffrey, I am worried that because of this level of urgency, that you might really bring in a tank to the city next time, or you might bring a machine gun or whatever, and more people will get shot for this kinds of reasons because of the level of urgency, right? Because we have so many enemies inside. Let's arm our civilians. And another question that I have is, what are you going to do once the enemy is eradicated? Are you going to still maintain those armed civilians? They're going to want to do something with those skills, right? So I just kind of wanted to highlight those worries that I see within America.
Okay, let's just move now to the next person because there's a lot of people on the list. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so next on the list, we have Gila. As a reminder, guys, it is about 40 minutes, a little less until the hour, and we're getting Armin out. We also have 2 questions for after the recording stops. So I have stopped taking new names on the list. If we happen to jam through these and it looks like we'll have more time, I'll open it up to just the first hand once I say go. Keep your hands away or we cut them off here on out.
Thank you. And first of all, the main point I wanted to tell you is about putting, like after you air hard stuff, and I want you to air hard stuff, we air here even at noon. We show these pictures. You can show it too. But then after that, you put the pictures and videos of the children of the regime having fun. Just the hypocrisy, the switch. I think it will be a good way to show it. That's one
So
thing.
you're saying it's a good video to show
Yes.
show the
Yeah,
bodies of the
how
Iranians being killed by the Islamic Republic, and then switch to showing the children of the regime officials having fun and partying and having luxurious lives outside of Iran.
even now when I say it, it makes my heart pound even faster.
Okay,
The dissonance is major impact.
that's a
Okay.
good. Yeah,
And now from my perspective, when I was a little girl, I used to go on a bus and I used to scan the bus to look for bombs. Now I don't do it. This is old news, right? Now there is new terror everywhere. It's a different kind of terror. It has many tactics. He's using us and our ways to disguise himself, and he's infiltrating. When you discuss about borders, now it's inside your borders in many ways. The Somali Minnesota frauds, it could be the Intifada people on the streets. So we have to think about all of it. And Shana, in the beginning, you said about Qatar and America. You need to be scared that Qatar is buying people inside your government, inside your culture, and they're doing it. They don't buy the government with business, legitimate business. They buy people, right? That had influence in many directions. So it's a big thing. And I think this is why Trump is so good, because he understands everything is fast, right? Not sleepy. And when you talk to this kind of terror that is fast and moving and switching faces, you need to be fast and you need to not work with diplomacy anymore. You remember Trump shaking one hand so strong, it left a mark, right? because diplomacy doesn't work in these cases. You need to squeeze his hand so hard that for a week he will think about this conversation. Okay? You need to force him. We don't have time for diplomacy and sleepy and more committees and stuff. So that's another thing. The board of stability. Okay? People are so scared of this fragile situation. So Trump is the only one that made people with deals, whatever he want, with shaking. He made them stood to some promise, even if it's not all the promises, because sometimes, even if they want, they can, because they don't have the skills, the abilities, whatever. So people trust Trump that even people are so scared of him that they will listen, and we need this because if the board of stability and peace will not last, this whole thing is going to collapse. But if it will last, even for a short time, this region can like build itself over. So yeah, that's
Okay, so Armin, Nail Bunny asked that you check your Telegram when you can. And next on the list, we have Richard.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we hear you.
Okay. So, not a question, not a point. Just wanted to say something to Armin. It occurred to me that you've been kind of running in an emotional marathon the last 30 days, and just wanted to send words of support. I think I told you earlier I don't speak Persian, but I did find something in Persian that I thought might be applicable to all this. I wanted to say that to you if that's okay.
Yeah, no, of course.
All right. I apologize for mispronouncing any of this. در نمدی بسی امید است پایانی شبی سیاه سپید است. پایانی شبی سیاه سپید است.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's very sweet. No, thank you for your support, Richard.
Richard, you are such a mensch. Okay, next we have Shy.
Thank you.
Surprise. Oh, my camera is bad, so I'll turn it off. Hila, I had the same experience when I was a kid here in Israel, getting on the bus, scanning the bus, seeing somebody that I don't like, getting off the bus, waiting for another bus, etc. That was, yeah, I remember the 90s. I wanted to make a few points, guys, here about political philosophy that was discussed earlier. Armin, thank you for that course. I watched like, I think 20 or 30 minutes of it here about political philosophy. I'm going to watch it to the end and then I'll be able to much better chime into this. I've been talking about Trump and talking about political philosophy. I'm still putting together what's realistic and what's theory and what's real because it seems like Trump is in the real world. So basically, when he started running, there was an article by the Dilbert cartoonist who just passed away, Scott Adams, called Clown Genius. So everybody read that because I think Oscar said, oh, you're saying Trump's a genius. And he wouldn't have won the presidency if he wasn't using all kinds of crazy tactics during the debates and in order to rally everybody to listen to him and gain attention. And I think today he is using these tactics too to basically figure out ways to make things happen. And I believe, in my opinion, he's trying to get rid of the Ayatollahs. It's just not an easy thing to do. He's trying to figure out a way to make that regime fall. And so I hope that's the case, because he is so unpredictable and it's hard sometimes to read him. But from what I see, yes, he is trying to do that strategically. And the other point, there's another group here in Israel and around the world called the Ayn Rand Center, and they're more on the political philosophy side. And they seem to be not really happy with Trump, but at the same time, there could be a debate made between your political theories that I see in the course and their kind of views. And that's sort of like a discussion on the new emerging right, I would say, around the world. But it will be amazing to see if and like I hope when the Islamic Republic falls, we will have a new world where Iran is free, and that creates an entire new dynamic around the world where the quote unquote, not the right, but I would say the non-liberal free world is going to have its energy released. Everybody here, I guess, is looking forward to that. I want to say
Yep.
one last thing in that relation. Is in the past 5 years, I've had the opportunity to work with amazing colleagues who are from Iran. In one instance, I was hired by somebody who was an Iranian Canadian to work for them. On another instance, I had somebody work as a developer under me in a team who's
I
from Iran. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. The people in Iran seem to be, once they're free, it's going to be amazing. I think I've already made that point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you. All right, guys. Let's go through the list a little bit faster if we can, because
Okay, we've got Michael,
I'm
Cat
just gonna.
Lady, Oscar, Uncle, and Hassan. If we have time to get through everybody. And yes, a gentle reminder that we are coming to a close now. And so we really got to keep with those 3 minutes where we can. Thanks, everybody.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, obviously, like, I think the maybe we're not as smart as Trump is, or maybe, well, I mean, I can't really say that. I can't judge off of that. But I feel like Trump uses a lot of like language, like for example, with Greenland, annexing Greenland. Maybe he's using that just for the media, just to distract the American public while he does maybe a major operation in Iran. I mean, I could be wrong or I could be right. That's my theory. But at the same time, I feel like that this guy has to moderate himself. When you make a promise to a certain group of people, that means that you plan on executing something big. And I really feel bad for the Iranian people because, like, the people in Iran, because they might think that, Trump is betraying them or whatever, you know, and they have all the right to think that way. But, like, obviously, like, if I were in their shoes, I'd feel hopeless at this point. Oh, yeah. And then another thing, yeah, like, for example, I agreed with Oscar's talking points. Like, what's going to happen after Trump? Because here in the United States, like, I'm here in California and there's Governor Gavin Newsom. He's like a damn liberal, he's an extremist. So we have many of these dudes that are running for presidency in the next presidential election. As a matter of fact, we have the midterms coming up. And so, I'm definitely going to vote Republican because, I'm not Republican. I don't identify myself as Republican nor Democrat. But at the same time, I don't want these people to get in office that are like liberal because Gavin Newsom has really restricted the gun rights here in the state of California. And if he gets in office, he'll just probably try and disarm the country. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you,
Can I
Armin.
just say something
Yeah.
regarding all of this? And you guys could let me
Yeah.
know in the chat if you agree with me or not. I don't think like moral judgments on these people is, I think it's irrelevant. I've become so much of a consequentialist that if an asshole person is doing something that ends up being for some reason or another in our interest, I'll take it. And if a really good decent person is doing certain things that is against our interests, we have to take a position against that very good person. I don't give a shit anymore regarding, oh, this politician is good or bad. We have to focus on what we can do given the information that we have. Like, we have to look at our agency and where we could push for what we want, and based on the information that we have and based on what we could do as a collective, regardless of whether we like the person or we don't, right? It doesn't really matter, in my opinion,
I mean, I
whether
don't hate
you
him.
or don't. I think it's irrelevant. Who gives a shit, right? We don't need to come up with a blanket judgment on Trump or anyone else. I think each policy, each action should be judged whether or not it
I
serves
feel like we should
separately.
talk about the
Like,
good, the bad, and the ugly. Sorry for my interruption,
no,
by
let me actually make my point. Let me finish my point. So I think, for example, we could have certain a politician A have multiple positions here that is in our interest and multiple positions over there that is against our interest. I think it's a waste of time for me to come and say, like, do we like politician A? If somebody wants to do something and you want to encourage them, you have to come out and saying, like, oh my God, we love you, you're amazing. And we have to say that because that's how you get political capital to be able to encourage them to do something. But that's what you do when you're doing activism. I understand that. But like internally within myself, who cares about whether this guy is a good guy or not. And also, a blanket judgment on his entire policies doesn't make any sense. The only thing, for example, I understand is that at this point he might do this, and he might not. And what can we like? Do we want him to do this, or do we not want him to do this? And so these are basically the metrics. Do we want him to do it, or do we not want him to do it? That's question number 2. Question number 3: do we have an influence as a collective? Question number 4: if we do have an influence, how do we actually influence it? Like, what is the things that we could do to influence it? These are the relevant questions. And I think the questions regarding, oh, he's good, he's bad, these are for entertainment purposes. This is treating the news as a source of entertainment. This is my team, that's your team. I hate you because you're on that team and you're on my team. So you hate him like I do. So you're on my team. So, oh my God, it's like watching sports. So for me, like cheering on a guy or hating on a guy in politics is basically the same thing as watching like soccer or football or basketball for entertainment. You're not really in it to be, to actively do something that changes people's well-being. News is a sort of source of entertainment for you. Like, as an activist, I don't treat news as a source of entertainment. As an activist, I treat news as a source for me to see where we could actually have some influence. So I don't come up with blanket statements over whether or not somebody is good or bad. I look at exactly specific areas and figure out what we could do to actually have some influence. Does that make sense, Michael?
I agree 100%, but I feel like we should judge the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that way we don't
That's
repeat
the
those
name of a
mistakes
movie. I
again.
don't know what it. Yeah, okay. I'm not saying we don't judge. I'm just saying that I don't come up with a general blank. I think like if I'm judging based on consequences and the influence that we could have, rather than making a moral judgment on individuals.